Mrityau Shantihi. If you know it, join with me. Antariksham Shantihi, Prithvi Shantihi, Apa Shantihi, Oshadaya Shantihi, Vanaspataya Shantihi, Vishvedeva Shantihi, Brahma Shantihi, Sarvam Shantihi, Shantireva Shantihi, Sama Shantiredhi. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Bravo. Peace is in the heavens, peace is in the sky, peace is in the waters. The earth is filled with peace. The herbs and trees are filled with peace. May the peace of Brahma be manifest in all divine forms, including ours. May that peace be ours. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us all. Now, I wanted to talk about gratitude as a spiritual practice, obviously because it's November, and November is always about Thanksgiving. And it's always about giving thanks. We start getting these messages about be thankful, gratitude. We're supposed to be grateful. And then we get all these Hallmark messages and when all the pictures that show up on various things about, you know, the family together with the dog and the fireplace and the turkey and the dog looking at the turkey. And we all get this thing about gratitude. And then of course, there's the pumpkin lattes that start showing up everywhere. And we are supposed to be grateful. And then all the messages that come through and all these pictures are about food and food and food and pumpkin, everything. And then we're supposed to be grateful for that. And then we're told, above all, that it is holiday season's time to buy. And Black Friday is coming right up. Then we get the pre-Black Friday and the post-Black Friday. So it is the season that we are supposed to be grateful. And they tell us that we're grateful, that we're thankful. And what a waste of an opportunity to use something that we really can use in our spiritual life and to bring it down to pumpkin lattes and Hallmark cards and buying on Black Friday. So gratitude can be and should be a spiritual practice and can really sweeten our lives if we make the decision to be grateful. We can either see a cup half empty or half full, or we can just be grateful and amazed that there is a cup right here when I need it. Thank you. We can just be grateful and amazed for what we often just take for granted. And that's, again, a big waste of an opportunity. It's a choice that we make. It's a choice to make this a spiritual discipline. But when we do it, we can find our life really transformed in very helpful ways, because if we can make it a practice, it gives us the space to accept what life throws at us with an open heart and a peaceful mind. Because gratitude becomes a very open-hearted acceptance. And that gives us a broader heart, a clearer mind, and it will really sweeten every part of our life when we can do that. It makes for a very happy life. And there's another reason, a really much more somber reason to talk about gratitude now, and that's because of the really terrible time. We're seeing so much pain, so much suffering around the world, so much reaction to the suffering, so much anger and hatred, fear, anxiety. And we all feel it weighs very heavily on all of us, and we simply don't know where to put it or what to do with it. And that's where we really have to step back and remember the lessons of gratitude, which are that, first of all, it puts the ego down, and we begin to realize that in many cases we just have to step back. We have to step back and pray where we can and realize that we're not the center of the universe, and we're also not the director of the universe. And what we want and what we think really doesn't make any difference at all. And that's where we learn the lessons of gratitude. No, we're very geographically far away from all the destruction that we're reacting to right now. But we're not even one heartbeat away from what's happening there. Not even one heartbeat, which is appropriate. Because if there's one thing that Vedanta teaches, it's the oneness of life, the unity of existence, and others people's pain becomes our pain. Their joy becomes our joy. Their suffering becomes our suffering. So that's appropriate reaction that we should feel so heavy right now. But it's also appropriate that we learn our place in the universe and we can contribute where we can, which is with prayerfulness, with love, with acceptance, with the understanding of every person's suffering and what we can do to try to alleviate that. And gratitude has a lot to do with it. You know, another thing that's kind of funny right now, I'm looking at this picture of Mother Kali up here, is November is also the time of Kali Puja. And Kali Puja is kind of, well, she does with this world what she wants. We realize it's not our world, it's her world. And we'll say, oh, Holy Mother, of course, we'll say, no one is a stranger, my child, the whole world is your own. We say, well, you can have this world. Who wants it? Who wants this thing that is radioactive at this point? But it's her world, and she does with it what she wants. In the Chandi it says, we give salutation to her who is at once most gentle and most terrible. Oh yeah, gentle and most terrible. It's the truth. So how can we possibly be grateful for all of this? How can we deal with it? Because when we feel this genuine gratitude, we realize, again, we're not the director of this universe, that the universe was humming along just fine before we got here, and it will continue on its merry way after we're gone. Our big ego doesn't even make a flicker in this world screen. And when we realize that, we realize how much we're part of everything else, it gives us profound humility and profound gratitude. I was really surprised to read some time ago that the Roman philosopher Cicero said that gratitude is not only the greatest of virtues, it is the parent of all other virtues. And I thought, why? What's that about? And the more I thought about it, I realized it's because no other virtues can grow when the ego is up front. And gratitude brings the ego down. Gratitude just wears it down, wears it away. And wearing away the ego is absolute, significantly the most important thing to gain purity of heart. When the ego gets down, we can have purity of heart. And without purity of heart, we will have no chance, we don't have a snowball's chance in hell of realizing who we are or realizing God. We can never attain self-realization. We can never realize God if our big bloated ego is standing in the way. Gratitude wears that ego down because we realize how much we are dependent and supported by everyone and everything else in the universe. We begin to realize how much we owe to so many other people and so many other beings on the planet. And were it not for their very existence, we would simply not be here on the planet. We have a debt to everyone and everything. Gratitude also teaches us that this myth of American individuality is total nonsense. It's ridiculous. Take that, Ayn Rand. It's wrong. Wrong, Ayn Rand. When we practice gratitude, we realize we really aren't individual beings at all. That we're all kind of interconnected and interdependent and interrelated, and our happiness and our joy is dependent on the well-being of everybody else. That if others are unhappy, if others do not have well-being, we're as affected. Nothing is independent in this world. We're all interconnected. Did any of us even know about Wuhan, China before 2019? A friend of mine here does, but apart from that, no one else does. I mean, how many people had even heard of Wuhan, even knew such a place existed in 2019? Well, whether it was a bat or a wet market or a lab leak, doesn't really matter. But Wuhan, China, something there, one person's illness changed the world, completely upended our lives. We're all interconnected, interrelated. What's happened in Gaza in October affects all of us right here, right now. Why do you think we're all being checked at the street? Yeah, affects everyone and everything else. We're all interconnected and interrelated. So we stand in this great circle of life. We're all holding up and supporting each other. And what happens to one of us happens to every one of us. If one part is affected, we're all affected. That's the nature of being on this planet. That's the nature of life, being interlinked. And that's the beauty of life. Gratitude is knowing this interlinking and interrelatedness and being grateful for those other parts that hold us up. We stand in this great circle. So we're all affected. It's like Star Wars. I feel a disturbance in the Force. We all do. We all do right now. We all did with COVID, right? We're all affected. We all affect each other. We don't really think about those things that make our life possible. You know, if it weren't for ocean plankton, none of us would be here today. Ocean plankton gives us almost all of our oxygen that we breathe. If it weren't for bees, we wouldn't be here. Albert Einstein said if we didn't have bees, the human race would have about 4 years, because we need bees to pollinate fruits, flowers and fruits, and it just goes right up that food chain. 4 years. The other thing that Albert Einstein said is one of my favorite things. He said, there's 2 ways to look at life. One way is that nothing is a miracle. The other way is to think that everything is a miracle. And Einstein was sort of the latter camp, and I am too. Because that was really it with gratitude. Because gratitude makes us realize that everything is a miracle. That were it not, because none of us ever thinks about bees or ocean plankton. How many of us think about dirt? God bless dirt, because it wasn't for the microbes that need dirt, none of us would be here today. Without microbes, there's no life. So thank you, dirt. So let's hear it. Dirt. So when we realize this, how much we owe everybody and everything, we develop a sense of humility. We don't show any gratitude to them, and their lives, they don't care if we're here or not. They go on with their life. And we survive off their bounty. And we just take it for granted. When we stop taking it for granted, that's when our life just becomes very much more enriched. That's when we get a lot more joy out of life, by realizing how much we gain from everybody and everything else. When we make a sadhana of gratitude, it's an attitude that's much deeper than our normal idea of gratitude. It's not like someone hands us something, we go, thank you, which is almost like a knee-jerk reaction because it's the polite thing to do. So it's like, thank you, thank you, thank you, but we don't even think about it. It's just this deep. But gratitude comes very deep from within us. It comes from that place where we really become aware of the unity of life, the unity of existence. That's when it really becomes a sadhana. That reality of where this is coming from, our understanding of our unity with everybody and everything else. The oneness of life, the unity of existence, that we're nothing but Brahman, just masquerading in all these Halloween costumes we've seen around as one individual, second individual, third individual, all these little costumes that we keep on wearing. We're all that divinity running around and knocking into each other, making each other joyful, making each other miserable. Such is Mother's play. I see her up there dancing on Lord Shiva with a scythe in her hand. It's like, you go on, Mother. Okay, most gentle and most terrible. There we go. Swami Vivekananda said, "You are one with the universe." And gratitude makes us really understand that in a very visceral way, in a very reality-sorted way. How? Because we realize that our self-centeredness is just a ridiculous way of thinking. Because we realize that we're here through the grace of God, through the grace of every other person in the world, and we're here by the grace of the world that surrounds us, by our community, and by this very earth that supports us all. Meister Eckhart said, if your only prayer in your entire life is only the words, "Thank you," that will suffice. That's enough. A very deep thank you. And he was one of the greatest mystics that ever walked the earth. Thank you. Ramakrishna said that there was a sadhu whose only spiritual practice was to get out of his cave in the morning and go to a waterfall and stand there and dance and clap his hands and say, well done, God, bravo, bravo, well done. Immersed in the bliss of Brahman by just seeing Brahman in the world surrounding him. Now, we could be like another sadhu walking down the path who's like on his cell phone, right? Or like absorbed in something else. He's thinking about something else. He doesn't even notice that waterfall. He doesn't care about the waterfall. He's got this important call coming, or he's thinking about some problem he's got to deal with at home. Instead of being immersed in the absolute joy that sadhu discovered by just looking at that waterfall and seeing for what it was, a manifestation of the infinite joy of Brahman. We have these opportunities all the time, but we simply don't take them because we're too absorbed in our self-centered whatever it may be at the particular moment. That's where our lives are. So he built his entire spiritual practice on that, where everything is just that he encountered in his small little natural world there. It was a manifestation of Brahman. And we're part of that too. We're part of that waterfall that he saw. We're all part of that. You know, Swami Lokeshwarananda, who is the founder of the Ramakrishna Mission Institute of Culture in Kolkata, and he was also the founder of Narendrapur, that wonderful school. And he was he was a grand sadhu. He was just so majestic. And he said when he was a young monk, he told me once about how he spent time in Mayavati. He went up for solitude. So he was up there, and he said he would look at the stars. And he would look at the stars at night and think, the light that is within them is the same light that is within me. Same light within you. And he said, and one day, he had went out and just decided to spend the whole day in the forest. So he got some nimki, some little snacky things, some little fried little salty snacky things, and he tied them up in his cloth. And he spent the whole day out in complete solitude. It was so deeply quiet. And then he heard the call of a bird. He said, and I knew that bird was the voice of God. And he went into very high spiritual mood. And I thought, we hear birds all the time. I mean, it may be just background noise for us. Or we might hear it and go, what was that? What's that, a blue jay? A crow. We don't hear in it the voice of God. And we may see the light of the stars. If you're lucky and get outside of New York City, you might see the light of the stars, but do we ever think, there the sun shines, not the moon, not the stars, nor the lightning, where is fire? Thou shining, all other objects shine in this universe. Do we ever think of that? But we have this opportunity with the practice of gratitude, and to not just see things, but see things. Not just be with somebody, but be with somebody. To really take that in and make it a part of our spiritual practice, not see people as obstacles, people who are in our way, or obstacles to our spiritual life, because you know what, I want to meditate right now. Would you please go? You're interfering in my spiritual practice, which means you being out of here. It's like we have to be really honest with ourselves about this. It's like, where does our spiritual practice start and our egotism begin, right? So that's where gratitude leads us. It's like, okay, where am I coming with this? We can all react in our own ways, but how do we make it into a spiritual practice is really our job in this life. Now, we Americans, we're very famous for being individualistic. You know, we like to do our own thing. We're the Marlboro man who like stands alone and I'll take this on by myself. But there's a real downside to that because we see ourselves as loners, as lone individuals, not nestled into a community, not nestled in to the natural world, kind of standing outside, lonely, dramatic, instead of the reality of where we really are. Nestled into a family, a community, an environment, a world, an atmosphere, a history, a future. And that's a very sad place to be unnestled, unmoored. It makes for a very unhappy life when you're unmoored from our own nest, thrown out when we're too young. Because we're supported and nourished by so much in this world. And the truth is we're standing on the shoulders of thousands of people, thousands of beings that pretty much remain unacknowledged in our lives. And we wouldn't be here where we are right this very minute, even if you're online, baby, right where we are right now, were it not for those thousands of individuals and beings that have nourished us and supported us all throughout our life, even if we're just kids, all throughout our life. They've given us support and courage and strength all along the way. Our spouses, our partners, our friends, our moms, our dads, our grandparents, uncles and aunts, everybody. Let's talk about our genetic pool. All of them, from which we get our physical and some of our mental traits. Everyone in our family, our kids, who can bring us great joy and great pain. It's all a blessing, both the joy and the pain, because all of it adds up to our spiritual development. Both the good and the bad and the ugly bring us to where we need to be in our own spiritual development. And of course, we have to acknowledge our profound indebtedness to our spiritual teachers. All the spiritual teachers, our own spiritual teacher and the great spiritual teachers we met along the way, without whom we could not be here right now, and without whom our lives would be so barren if it weren't for these spiritual teachers that we were encountered out of nothing but God's grace and their grace. Where would we be without that? We have to acknowledge every kind of teacher we've had in our life, every kind. At school, all our mentors that we've had at life, all those who taught us what we didn't know, and they gave us their time and energy to teach us. In school or at work, or a neighbor who helped us out we couldn't figure out how to start that lawnmower. They came over and helped us. I didn't know how to use an axe, and to be taught how to do it. We learned through the grace of other people. All the mentors in our life who've changed our lives for the better, given us knowledge and wisdom, and made us feel more competent, more able to deal with the world. Our piano teacher, hello, the tabla teacher, right? Our English teacher, our grade school teachers, God bless their patience. Our coach, the people who've really helped us along in this world. We grew so much from all of them, every one of them. We have to be really grateful for all of those people who added to our knowledge, added to our greater wisdom, who spent time with us, who cared for us, who cared enough to make us learn what we really didn't want to learn. It was too hard for us to learn, or we didn't think we needed to bother to learn. They cared about us. They cared about us. And they enlarged our world because of their caring and their time and their infinite patience, how much they gave to us. People who developed parts of ourselves that were fallow before we met them. And then a greater depth came into our lives because of their understanding and their kindness, their patience, and their humility, because they learned from somebody their humility. We're grateful to our friends who shared their joys and sorrows with us, and that we felt comfortable enough to share ours with them. We're grateful to our friends' parents who opened their homes and their refrigerators to us again and again and again, without complaint, again. All those peoples whose lives made our lives so much greater and sweeter, who brought us to where we are today, had it not been for those very people that we often forget. They were there 20, 30, 40 years ago. We shouldn't take them for granted. We need to remember how much they gave to us, how much we got from them that made all of our lives possible. They enriched our lives. We're grateful to our pets because sometimes they were the only ones that listened to us all the time, 100% of the time. They always had sympathy for us. They were always happy to see us when we got home. No one else was, but they were. For their ability to make us laugh when nothing else could. We're grateful to them. We're grateful to the kid who knocked us down and forced us to fight back, because that gave us courage to continue the battles we would have in life. Thank you, little brat of a kid. You helped me out. You didn't want to, but you ended up doing so. We're grateful to the mean people who insulted us, who demeaned us, who made our lives as hard as they possibly could, who tried to get rid of us one way or the other, who did everything they could. They bullied us, and from them we gained strength and courage. And over time, we learned to have compassion for them because they suffered way more than we did. Whatever was gnawing at them was much harder than what we ever had to experience. We gained compassion for them because they were obviously suffering a lot more than we did. More and more, we realized that every single thing that ever happened to us in our lives, good, bad, and especially the ugly, we would not be here today were it not for everything that happened to us. And for that, we have to be very, very grateful. It gave us wisdom, it gave us pain, and from that, we learned from it. Even the most painful, horrific episodes that ever happened in our lives, things that we would never repeat to anyone else because we didn't want to scar them any more than they were already scarred, are those things that brought us to where we were today. Because without them, we would not have suffered enough to look for something more beyond this shallow life than we were having. That without that pain, that we would not have something much far greater than our small life was at the time. And we would find a way to learn ways out of suffering and being a victim instead of a victor. That is what real gratitude can teach us. All of it is grace. All of it is grace if we take it in the right spirit. Because without these experiences, we could not be here today. We could not have the body and mind that we have today. That is exactly what we need right at the right time, which is right now. Thinking about this gives us profound humility, which is really what we need in spiritual life. Because the ego likes to think, look at me, look what I did. I could do so much. Do you know what I did yesterday? I did this and this and this and then, and by 11 o'clock I was able to have a cup of coffee and I celebrated and then I got back to work again and look how great. I did it. I did it. And I want to tell everybody, or have at least someone notice. You noticing how much I did? Well, that's the old ego. But then when we gain a little gratitude, we realize that it wasn't I did it, we did it. We, in every part of this me, I thing, has thousands of beings behind it. I never does anything, we did everything. We all did everything all together. And wasn't that great? Didn't we all have fun together doing that? Didn't we all learn from that experience? It's all a big we. The I is just such a cosmic joke, and it causes everybody such pain. It's just the big pain bearer of all the worlds. Because really, what will we do without the people who pick up the garbage, right? I was here once in New York during a garbage strike. It was bad. It was bad.
I was like, when are these people going to get back? Give them whatever they want. I can't walk in the street like that. It's scary.
What would we do without the people who make our water like drinkable? I've been in places where you can't drink the water out of the tap. I've been in places where you can't drink the water out of the tap, and even then you purify it, you're still wondering about it. It's like, isn't it great to have water? You know, I'm from Santa Barbara, baby. You think it looks pretty? It's pretty until it isn't. You have one mudslide and you don't have water for 3.5 weeks. 3.5 weeks without water is tough. It was like January. I was diving into a neighbor's swimming pool. She evacuated like the smart person she was. I was like, yes, 30 degrees. It's so bracing. You really be careful. Use that water, and believe me, it's not going to be in a bathtub. You're going to think 1,000 times before you flush a toilet. You're going to want to drink that water. You're going to want to save that water, and you realize that you have been living a pretty cushy life with your water. You can just drink right out of the tap. You think you can have a bath? You can flush a toilet? What a way to use water! It's then you realize it's like, I'm not the exception here. Most people in the world can't do this. They can't just open up a tap and drink clean water. It's like, are we grateful for that, or we just take it for granted? It's like, thank you, whoever makes this water drinkable. I really appreciate it. Thank you. What we do without the plumber, the electrician, the guy who fixes the computer. Thank you. Thank you. It's really bad when these things don't work. Do we ever think about the guys picking up the vegetables in the fields? That's a tough one. We have some really hot summers. These people are dying in the fields. They're being exposed to pesticides. Thank you. Do we thank the farmers? Thank you for doing this. Thank you. Or what about the first responders? I don't know what, people do with saints, but in Santa Barbara, we've got firemen up there with, every saint on the planet. We put up on shrines what we think for the firefighters who run into the fire and save our lives. The first responders. What about the first responders here who during the pandemic were getting so ill? The people who put their lives on the line for us. The people who got sick before we got sick and did it willingly out of pure love and unselfishness, out of a real understanding of service. That's where we see the wonders of humanity. They put us before they put them. What would we do? We expect someone to answer 911? What if we didn't have it? What if we're just out there on our own? Bad way to live. What would our lives be like without all the music we love? All the art, the poetry, the writers. Our lives would be so barren without music, without art, without poetry. These people might have lived hundreds of years before we even were born, and our lives are entwined with theirs. Our lives would be so barren without them. How can we not be grateful for these people's genius, for their artistry, for what they left for all of us, for what they left to the world? Our lives are so ennobled by the music they wrote, what they said, what they thought. How long ago did Shankara live? How would we know Shankara if it wasn't for what writings and teachings we have now? We can only be profoundly grateful. All of our lives are infinitely richer because of all of them, all of them. We can't take it for granted, because if we do, we lose our place in this infinite divine chain of being, where we're all standing together, holding each other up, supporting each other. This is the true understanding of the unity of life. We have profound gratitude, how we all feed and support each other, just like everything on the planet feeds and supports each other. When we take stock of all of this, we become truly humbled how much we're here through the grace of everyone and everything else. Profound gratitude. In the Ramayana, it said that there's only one unforgivable offense, and that's ingratitude. Lakshman said to Sugriva, one who kills a cow, let's start with the important things, one who kills a cow or drinks intoxicating liquor, oh God, or is a thief or violates his vow, is still able to expiate his sin. But one who is guilty of ingratitude, no expiation is possible. I thought, that's kind of harsh. You know, what about it? I'm sorry. So that guy was like, maybe not. Lakshman must be really mad. So what is so desperately wrong with ingratitude? And the more I thought about it, it's like, because it's profoundly wrong, right? Because it has this big bloated ego that says, I, me, mine. And it takes up all the space. Because this ego says, I am here by myself and nothing or no one and anything else ever helped me. So you can't look up, you can't look down or side to side, because this big ego is taking up all the broadband width, taking up all the space, and there's nothing but a sheer massive ego that's blocking everything else. That is the real problem with ingratitude. So you can sort of see why Lakshman was a little annoyed about this. With a full-blown ego, like that Lakshman is obviously referring to, and it obviously has to do with Bali, with a full-blown ego, we can't get ourselves out of the way. That means we can't see anything clearly. That means we can't see our own divinity, and if we can't see our own divinity, we'll never see the divinity in anyone else either. And that's a lousy way to live. It's a lousy way to keep up in existence, without being aware that everything is a miracle, that everything is suffused with divinity, and that we have the opportunity every time to see and react and appreciate and be embedded in this divinity. What a loss. What a loss that this big balloon of an ego does to us. Now, if we pop it, it hurts. So a great sadhu that I met in Benares told me, never take the ego on head first. It will fight back and you will be the loser. You have to go at it at an angle so it won't notice. So the angle is gratitude. By wearing away the ego in a natural way, by simply acknowledging the truth around us and the truth that supports us. The development of gratitude develops purity of heart because it wears away at the ego. And that is the key to spiritual growth. Absolutely key is developing purity of heart. Purity of heart comes when we wear away the ego. Gratitude is a natural way of bringing down the ego and bringing us humility. One of our younger American swamis told this story, so I will repeat it to you. We've known him since, practically he was more known since he was a toddler with a sippy cup in his mouth. He was born into Vedanta, and he's a disciple of Swami Asheshananda. And Swami Asheshananda had passed away, but after getting his postdoc in physics, he became a monk of the order and was living in our monastery. And it was time for he and another brother monk to take their brahmacharya. And they'd asked Swami Swahananda for it, and Swami Swahananda said yes. And that was, and they were just over the moon about it. They were so excited. And they told their friends, and one of our devotees in Santa Barbara is an old friend of the family, and was so thrilled that she gave them both tickets as a point of celebration. She gave them tickets to a Dodger game. It's like, yay, their favorite baseball team. So to celebrate their brahmacharya, upcoming brahmacharya, they were going to go to a Dodgers game and just really have good old-fashioned American kind of clean fun at a Dodgers game, which was great until they found out that the brahmacharya vows was going to be held the very weekend of their vows, and the Dodgers game happened to be pretty much the same time, right before the vows. Oops. What are they going to do? Well, they're not about to waste $1,000 tickets. Yeah, those are very pricey tickets. Besides, they still wanted to go to the Dodgers game. They didn't want to hurt the devotee who'd spent so much in celebration of their vows. They also weren't about to waste the money or waste the opportunity to see the Dodgers live. But what were they going to do? Well, the other monk said, I'm not going to ask Swami Swahananda for permission. He's my guru. I'm not going to do that, because he knew that he'd be like thrown overboard and fed to the crocodiles. It's like, I'm not going to do that. That's on you. Well, our monk thought about it, because he'd already been to India. And he thought, well, would this ever happen in India? Oh, right. You go to the General Secretary Maharaj and you say, Maharaj, may I have permission to please go to a cricket match? And you'd be thrown right out. It's like, I guess you really don't want your vows, do you? I guess you really are not interested in becoming a monk. Oh. This would never happen. You would never even dream of asking the General Secretary for permission to go to a cricket match, right? That's so secular. So, our monk was hemming and hawing and couldn't sleep all night, was trying to figure out how he could possibly ask this, because he knew he had to do it. If nothing else, the other monk had backed him into a corner and he was going to have to do it. And he didn't know what to do. So finally he went there, and Swami Swahananda, if you don't know this, you're lucky, and thank God he's not here anymore, because he could read your mind in a second. Like reading a book. He could tell you exactly what was in there, and he would respond to what was in your mind. Not what was on your lips, but was exactly what was on your mind, which could be rather a humiliating experience when he did that in a public place. We saw it happen a number of times. So he didn't want to be thrown out on his ear. He also didn't want to be publicly humiliated and be reminded of this incident for the rest of his life, which was exactly what would happen, because 50 years later, he would be, remember, this is the guy who has, and that would happen. I promise you it would happen. So, but he had to do it. So he was sitting, he went to see Swami Swahananda. Swami Swahananda was like, sitting? Yes. And our monk was going, well, Swami, we weren't expecting this to happen, but this is what it's like. Swami, we got free tickets to a Dodger game, and Swami, of course, hated wasting money. But apart from that, he's like, we got these free tickets to a Dodgers game, and we want to go. We know this right before our vows, and we know this, but we still want whatever you think is right. But we still want to ask you your permission if it would be possible for this to happen. So he just sat there like, and Lal Chand was waiting for the hatchet to fall. And Swami Swahananda said, yes, you can go. And he was like, he said, it's all part of the purification process. And right, and we thought, wow. Because everything is part of the purification process, right? The good things and the bad things. It's all part of the purification. Now, for these tickets, they were going, thank you. For Swami Swahananda, it was like, thank you. But what does it really mean? It's part of the purification process. Because they will have this experience, they will go to the Dodgers game, and they'll go, it will begin, it'll have a beginning, and it'll have an end. And then it'll be over, and it'll be a memory. It'll eventually just kind of become quite faint. What will they remember? Oh, they're going to remember their brahmacharya for sure. What's going to mean more to them? Taking those vows. What's going to mean more to them in the big picture? The blessings from all the sadhus who gave them the vows, the strength that those vows have given them, the ability to move on to sannyasa, and the strength that comes from those vows. That's it. So yes, it's all part of the purification process. And I think of that all the time. It's all part of the purification process, and that's what gratitude can give us. Gratitude is a huge part of this purification process of reducing the ego. And that is when we develop non-transactional gratitude. Because gratitude is often very transactional. We don't think about it consciously, but it means, I want this, whether it be from a person or a thing or God, I want this. If I get it, I'm grateful. Thank you. If I don't get it, we're not on good terms. This is the way the transactional mind works. With gratitude, real gratitude, we develop non-transactional gratitude. It's not a bargaining that Swamiji hated. It's not tit for tat, you do this and then I say, thank you. It's open-hearted acceptance of what comes. An open-hearted acceptance for good or bad, good, bad, and ugly. Thank you. Thank you. This is what I need. Thank you, Mother. A mother who is most gentle and most terrible. Thank you. Thank you. I know this is what you thought, not necessarily me right now, was good at the time, and I know I'll realize in the future this is exactly what I needed at the time. Often we don't realize it for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years. And then we look back and realize, had that not happened, this would not have been possible. If this hadn't happened, that would not have been possible. And then we're grateful for every single thing that has ever happened to us in our life. Every single thing. Because without all of it, we wouldn't have the rich and deep spiritual life that is our birthright as human beings. And that is for what we have to be profoundly grateful. You know, Rumi said, wear gratitude like a cloak, and it will nourish every part of your life. And that's really the truth. Gratitude can nourish and enrich every part of our life, and it can give us a profoundly deeper and happier, regular, normal, happy life, just a regular daily life, but can also truly develop and enrich our spiritual life as well. And for that, I'd like to thank you for just being here and joining me in these thoughts. Thank you. And I'll conclude with a chant. And join me if you know the chant. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnamataya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Filled with Brahman are the things we see. Filled with Brahman are the things we see not. From out of Brahman flows all that is. From Brahman flows all, yet Brahman remains the same. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us all. Thank you.
Monty, we'll take questions. If you do have, put up your hand and the mic will be brought to you right here.
Thank you so much for speaking with us. I think I speak for everyone. We are so grateful that you're here and grateful for the knowledge you shared. I think I can speak for myself, and maybe some other people in the room can identify. At this moment, we're probably all in a good place, ready to receive gratitude because we're all here listening. But I definitely have moments that I wake up, and even though, you know, I'm on my silk sheets and I'm handed my decaf coffee with oat milk and the door is held for me before I leave my house, all these wonderful things occur. I'm in a bad place, and I just can't get out of my own way, and I can't get out of that sadness, rut, sorrow, lack of gratitude. And I know people that are perpetually in that state.
They're used to it. They enjoy it.
Yeah, and how do you know, and I know I start to get myself back on track by gratitude. I say my prayer before I eat my food, and little things along the way to put the gratitude, to infuse it into my day. And it puts me back where I need to be. But how does one speak to those that aren't open to hear or see the example?
You know, I was, just before I had my hair cut, for which I'm deeply grateful because my hair was in my eyes, there was a woman next to me having her hair dyed. And she said, this was at 9 o'clock in the morning. She said, this is such a bad day. And now the day is worse. And I thought, whoa. I said, look, girlfriend, you're having your hair done. It's always a good day. And she said, you're a girl. Come on. We all having our hair done, right? Who likes hair in their eyes? But she was like, meow, meow. And my hairdresser was kind of like rolling her eyes, and I thought, she was probably 75, and I thought, oh, it's a lifetime habit. It's a lifetime habit. She's in Montecito. She is obviously, I get a free haircut because the woman who gives me the haircut is our devotee. But, you know, she obviously can afford to have this done, and she walked in the door. A lot of people couldn't walk in that door. Most people in Santa Barbara would really think twice before paying a price like that. And I think it's a lifetime of taking things for granted. I think in our own case, if we wake up on the wrong side of the bed and it's like, man, terrible world, look what's happening, terrible world, things what's happening, then I think we just have to stop ourselves when we notice that we're spinning like that, and then just stop and say, okay, specifically, what is making me unhappy this very minute? Like, okay, well, this happened in the world. Yeah, it's bad. Can I do anything about it? Well, I can pray. That helps. That helps. Is there anything I can do about these people out there who are so angry? Can I talk to them about it? Will they change their mind? No, you can't do a head-on confrontation with them either. And if you try to talk to them gently, they probably won't take it well either, because they're already in that rudges of anger. They're burning, they're burning, they're burning. They won't be happy till they set you on fire too. You have to stay back and pray. What can we do if we notice that something really, the reason we're actually bothered is not anything to do with that at all, but something that happened that we didn't want happening in our own life? This person said that. Why did they say that? This person did that. Why did they do that? This person looked that way. Why did they look that way? It's like then we realize, oh, does it have anything to do with my ego? Yeah, it could be. And then just kind of settle on that and say, well, you know, maybe you better adjust to this. Maybe this person had other things going on. And maybe I'm not the center of their world. Maybe I'm just the center of my world, and isn't that embarrassing? And it really helps. I once asked Swami Tyagananda, who was our great Swami in France, disciple of Swami Shivananda. He was well known for being angry all the time. But he was South Indian, so it was very controlled. But you could see him kind of like simmering. It's like when you've got a pot of rice on, but it's just going. It's like, okay, he's there, but he won't pop because he's not Bengali. So it's just like right there. And it's like, okay. And then I went back maybe 3 years later, and he was like completely different. It was like he'd been this hard, like your rose when they're like buds and they're really hard, and they just like opened up. And I said, why are you so different? And he said, Sri Ramakrishna was kind to me. So he'd had a profound experience. But so I asked him later, I said, so how did you deal with anger? He said, it's like a flower. You pick one petal, and then another petal, and then another petal. In other words, he was analyzing his mind. What made me angry here? Oh, that? Really? What else made me angry? That? I can do this way. Okay. Just petal by petal, taking it apart until that flower's gone, until the flower is just kind of dispersed. And that kind of diffuses the bomb. But we don't learn anything like that in a day. It's through a lot of practice and a lot of, it takes a certain amount of courage to be able to do that kind of self-analysis. Swami Tyagananda once said years ago, he said, people are afraid to look into their own minds. It's like they've got a garbage can and it's rattling underneath and they're afraid to open it up because of what's going to jump out at them. And in fact, it's just like, you open it up, it's like, meow. It's like, oh, it's just a kitty. It's like, it's just, you don't really, it's so much less than people are afraid than what it is. But it's like taking the courage to open up the lid and look down. Oh, really? Huh? Aren't you embarrassed? That helps a lot. And laughing at ourselves helps a lot. Not taking ourselves too seriously. That's a big foible in our lives. Because we're here such a short time on this planet. And why be miserable? Why make other people miserable? As Swamiji said, don't go around with a long face. It's a disease. Don't give it to anybody else. Yeah. Yes. Any other question? Yes.
Namaste, Swamiji. I wanted to ask you if you can speak about your process of how did you decide to take sannyas? And did you have a spiritual director? How was the journey for you? And then you're in a very prominent area of California where
I roll.
yeah, where majority of the people are super affluent.
No, they're not.
Aren't
the
they?
majority of the people are not. The people who own most of the property are.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, most of the area is Hispanic. Yeah.
So how do we create a better world? Like, I recently moved to the Upper West Side, and I came from Palo Alto, California, which is another bubble of,
enclave,
wealth,
Yeah.
where, we have, like, what they call the elite, and then everyone else serves them.
Right.
So I arrived here, and I'm like, oh my God, it's a similar world, you know, where, and I always think of Montecito as something similar again, where a bubble, where
it's a bubble in the sense there's the extreme wealth, and it's becoming more extreme all the time, because the ultra wealthy are flipping their properties and just selling and buying and selling and buying, and so the property taxes and the property values go higher, 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 and the people who live there and work there can't afford to live there unless they had property from the 70s or 80s, because the 80s, the wealthy, and it's become much more prominent now, are just using our area, or Santa Barbara period, to park their money. They simply park it there. They don't live there. They park it there. There are a few people who do live there, and Santa Barbara's pretty heavy in celebrities. We don't give our celebrities much attention or thought. You know who we care about? We care about the firefighters. Those we care about a lot. But there's a huge income gap. The majority of the people are not super wealthy. They're the people who serve, that was super wealthy and serve everybody else. People will often work 2 jobs to be able to keep a hold of what they have. If they had property from the 70s or 80s, they're okay. If they don't, it's very hard to live there. People have to commute. I came to Santa Barbara when I was 15. It was not like that then. I mean, yes, it was always a beautiful place, but you could afford to live there. The doctors and nurses lived there. The teachers lived there. The firefighters lived there. And then by the 90s, late 80s, 90s, people started parking their money there. They have no interest in the community. They have no interest in supporting the community. So we have the Oprahs of the world who just use it as a place, or we have Ellen, who I'm actually quite fond of, was very helpful to us, to everybody, during the mudslide, but she likes to flip houses. And when you flip houses and you increase it, when you have a house for $22.5 million, you sell it for $44 million, it's ridiculous. And that's like only 3 miles from us. Well, our place in Santa Barbara, it was a dirt road. A dirt road. I mean, no one lived out where we did because it was considered out in the boondocks. It was so remote. No one ever went out there. When I used to walk up on the extension, it was a dirt road. Now it's a private road. I can't walk on it because I don't belong to the neighborhood there. Just on our extension. It's like, are you kidding me? And people started putting up gates. Why? For the coyotes? Or is it for the bears? Oh, it's the mountain lions. They go right through the gate. Believe me, they do. So it's like, it's so unrealistic for people who, for the most part, don't live there. And that's, I mean, we get a lot of publicity for the celebs, but the real celebs who actually live there, they live very quietly like everybody else. They don't want to be noticed. We don't want to notice them. We all live together because we all have our jobs, and that's your job, this is my job. But the wealth disparity, it's in every part of where I live, California. People can't afford to live in places you wouldn't want to live. People can't afford to live in Bakersfield. Nobody would live in Bakersfield. Dang, it's bad. Why do you think we have such a huge homeless population? Because the real estate has become, the greed is overwhelming. Who's benefiting? You know, how much money does any person need? How much property does any person need? How much money, how much status does any person need? And then you realize that these are people who feel a big hole right here, and so they try to fill it up with things and money and celebrity and power and all that. It doesn't go very far. It's a very sad way to live. What can we do about it? Vote. What can we do about it? Pray. What can we do about it? Help people who are having an even harder time than we are. There's plenty of people who are scrambling everywhere just to pay their rent. People who are scrambling just to have even basic, minimal health care. It's a very tough world, and I think that's why everybody is like, just like that, just ready to fly off the handle, because everyone is so completely stressed out because it's become almost unmanageable. The income inequality and the fear of being like not being able to keep the nose above water, or the worry of not being able to take care of our kids, the worry of not being able to provide for a family, the worry of, am I going to end up living in the car? That's a real worry. They did some random poll and found like a significant percent of the population has this deep-seated worry about ending up living in the back of their car. It's like, what can we do about it? Most gentle and most terrible. We do what is in our power to do. We support what's in our power to support. We pray for those who really are having a very difficult time right now, especially the angry people, especially the people who've been beaten down, especially for the people who feel they have no recourse, especially the people who are suffering so much more than we are. And then, whatever comes, most gentle and most terrible. Mother, it's your world, it's not mine. You will do as you will do. You will dance as you will dance. And she seems to be dancing with her cleats on right now, but then, you know, it isn't like we have a choice. It's thy will be done. Thy will be done, Mother. It's Divine Mother's world, and she is going to dance and play as she wills. As she wills. And in the end, it's grace. The world will continue to evolve and devolve. This society will continue to evolve and devolve. We're just participants. We're just onlookers. We're part of this whole trying to hold up and support ourselves and everybody else. So we have to do our part to give support to the people who don't have support. To open a heart to someone who's terribly lonely and scared. That's what we have to do.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Thank you, Swamiji. You've kind of touched on this, but in practicing gratitude, how can one remember to practice gratitude in times of great tests? So, for example, maybe you've just lost a job, or you just lost a loved one, you just got in a car wreck, or whatever it may be. Like when something really horrible happens, how can you remember?
You can't at the time.
Okay.
You can't. You just have to go with what's going on. And just like, oh man, Believe me, I wasn't feeling terribly grateful when I sprained my ankle really badly. When I had my head in the dirt and my foot was like, my first reaction was not gratitude, but it's like, okay, am I hurt? Can I breathe? Good. Am I bleeding from my nose? No, good point. It's like you start adding up. It's like, okay, can I stand? Can I bear my own weight? Not happily, but yeah, I can. Getting out of the car, can you get out if you're in a horrible car accident? Okay, am I paralyzed? You just go down the list. Can I do this? Am I okay? Is the other person okay? Is the other person okay? Okay, it could have been worse. It's like, okay, I lost my job. That's rough. That's rough. Okay, plan B. Plan B. Okay, mother, can you give me help with this? But so I don't have a plan B in mind, and I hope you do. But it's like, no one is that nimble. Nobody. When we get hit with a baseball bat, we just have to acknowledge we're hit with a baseball bat. If we lose a loved one, you know what? We grieve. We grieve. And that is part of our growth as a human being, is to go through that grief and to realize how much we gain from that person, how much we're going to miss them, because that part of our lives is now we can't easily access and what we got from that person. We can be grateful that person is in our lives, was in our lives, and gave us so much. That doesn't erase that hole that they leave when they're gone. So we have to acknowledge our loss. We have to acknowledge our hurt. We have to acknowledge the fact that, oh, this is a big one. How am I going to find a job now? How am I going to go on? And then maybe 20 years from now, 10 years, 20 years, 5 years, maybe even 6 months, it's like, oh, I'm really glad I lost that job because that guy was a jerk. And I was being run around. And maybe this is better. Or I'm getting a whole lot less money, but you know what? I'm not as stressed as I was before. Maybe I needed to be moved out of that position because someone else needed to be there rather than me. We don't know everything at the time. All we can do is have our own reaction and not just... What we can do is just try to keep as calm as we can and just try to say, okay, well, I can breathe, I can move, good. I have other possibilities, yes. When I became a sannyasini, going back to an earlier one, I don't know that journey would have happened very fast if I hadn't been in a horrible car accident. Because I was enjoying a very nice life in Los Angeles, and I had a cute little, I'd go to work in my cute little, an MG midget that was a 1966, but had that, it was so fun to drive on the freeway, but it didn't happen to have a neck rest. So when I was rear-ended and my trunk ended up right next to me in the passenger seat, and I was spun around 4 lanes of traffic, and I did no feeling from my neck down. This wasn't my most grateful moment in my life. I was in the hospital for a week. I was in a severe amount of pain, and they didn't know if my neck was broken or not because I couldn't move my fingers or my toes, and I could feel like tears on my face. But what was the first thing I thought about? Well, now I can't be a nun. It's like, this is a hell of a time to think about it. Because I actually hadn't been thinking about it very much. Because I was enjoying my nice life. I was, I had a nice job. I was getting a good income. I was finally out of the academy, which doesn't pay all that well. I was taking a break from the PhD thesis, which I hated. And I was like, this is good being on the outside. I was like, I could go to art openings. I was going to movies. I was with a lot of friends. It was just a nice, fun life. I was just gliding along the surface of life, thinking, this is great. I'm going to do this for a while until, boom. What did I think of? Becoming a nun. Well, that's a great time to think about it. Why didn't you actually move on this earlier? Obviously, I wasn't ready. I needed to have that experience of being hit in the head with a sledgehammer to get my attention. So it took me a long time to be grateful for that car accident because it had its effects. I'm still got a lousy neck. But I got my feeling back. I can do everything that I ever wanted to do. But it gave me a lot more wisdom than I ever anticipated. And I don't know that I would have moved all that fast towards being a nun. But what I realized, I was, I thought this might be the last day of my life right here in the ER. I thought, could be your last day on the earth. Okay. Did you do what you wanted to with your life? No. Okay. What did you want? I wanted to realize God. Did you do it? No. You didn't make it priority? No. Maybe you ought to think about making it priority. Yep. If I get out of here, that's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to do. So I didn't make it a priority to have sannyasa. I made a priority to realize God. That was my priority. To put my spiritual life first, because that's what I discovered when I thought it was the last day of my life, was the most important thing to me. And I suspect with all of you, you knew it was the last day of your life, you wouldn't be worried about your job, you wouldn't be worried about your weight gain, you wouldn't be worried about your diet or what your friends said to you, or whether or not you should go on vacay next year or not. You'd be thinking much more about your spiritual life. And the truth is, we never know when it's the last day on earth for us. And that brought it home very viscerally, very viscerally. You go to the ER when you can't feel from your neck down. It's like, yeah, it could be the last day of my life. And where was my spiritual life? Well, it was something I wanted to do. It was very important to me, but it wasn't like front center. So I decided I had to put it front center, and so I did. That's how I became a nun. Any other questions?
Namaste, Mataji. Just an extension to your answer of spiritual life, what pulled you towards the Ramakrishna order?
I was an anti-war protester in 1967, when you were not even born.
I was.
You were one, huh? And I was one of those angry people out there, and so we were organizing a march down the center of town, State Street in Santa Barbara. And so our strategy, I was just one of the workers, and our strategy was to leaflet all the churches and to let people know about the peace march that we were going to have the following Sunday. So we did that, and we'd hit the local Catholic church. We still had all these leaflets left, so this guy that I had no idea who he was, but he had a car and I was too young to drive. So he said, well, let's go. We finished the Catholic church. He said, well, let's go to the Vedanta temple. I said, what's that? He said, oh, it's this beautiful place. They got a really big parking lot. Yes. So we went to the parking lot, and we lifted up the windshield wipers and put in our pamphlets. And then after we leafleted every one of those cars, and there were a lot, because Swami Pravrajika was speaking that day.
Was he?
Yeah. He was the guest speaker to Swami Pravrajika, the great Swami who was here at this center. And of course, I couldn't understand a word he said. But God. And he seemed very austere because he was so skinny. He was very thin. And I thought, I don't want to be around people who fast. Not my thing. I said, I'm not going to be like a Gandhi who fasts. And Swami Pravrajika, and so we went up, and after the talk, told the guy, can we go in there? He said, yeah, it's really cool. It's really beautiful. So we went in there. Oh, groovy, man. So we went in there. We went in there, and we sat down. It was so crowded. There was no place to sit except right next to the podium. And so I went up there and sat, and I couldn't understand him very much, but the atmosphere was so beautiful, and he was so saintly. And then we went down later and shook everybody's hand, and then the other Swami came and thanked him, and then Swami Pravrajika was very kind of formal, and so he extended his hand, and we shook hands, and then I went to Swami Pravrajika on the other side, and he just put his hand kind of over mine like that, very gently. And they looked at me and smiled. And I burst into tears. And I couldn't stop crying. And I was humiliated because I was going to bomb the Pentagon, stop the war machine, that kind of like, stop the war machine. You have to have peace. I'm going to shove it down your throat. We're going to have peace. Peace my way. Because I know it's best because I'm 15. And every 15-year-old knows how to solve the problems of the world. So, and I couldn't stop crying. And I couldn't stop crying, and I was humiliated. And then I thought, whatever he has is what I want. And then I came back the following Sunday, and I found a little Thus Spake Sri Ramakrishna. And I read it. And the first thing I read is I would read it when I walked to high school in the morning. So I would read it, and the first thing it said was, Sri Ramakrishna said, oh man, just because you don't see the stars in the daylight, in the daytime, doesn't mean that the stars do not exist. So in your days of ignorance, do not think that God does not exist. And basically, that God is. And when I read that, I put it to my heart, and I thought, I'm reading the truth. I'm reading someone who's speaking the truth. This is the truth. And it was such a powerful impression that it was like, this is it. This is it. And I never stopped thinking, this is it. This man is teaching the truth, and this is the way to realize God, and this is the most important thing that any human being can do. And I think it was like probably a year later, I was walking home from high school, and I was in the library waiting for my dad to get off work so he could drive us home. Drive me both home. And so I found in the library the book, The Crest Jewel of Discrimination. And I was reading that book, and I read Brahman and Atman are one. I went, wow, Brahman and Atman are one. That's amazing. That's so, like, it's so important. It's like, and I looked around the library, and I wanted to say, did you know that Brahman and Atman are one? This is like, it's so important. It was like, everyone's like, no, they're reading the newspaper. It's like, I just wanted, it was like this veil was like, Brahman and Atman are one. It's like everything like makes so much sense. It's like, and I was like on a page that nobody else was. But it was like everything just kind of led in that direction. And then I went to college, and it was like probably a month later, I went up and I went back to the book table to get something. And they said, oh, you're back. And I said, yeah, you sound surprised. And they said, yeah, we thought we were too square for you. I said, no, I love this place. And they said, well, we'll have to have you down to the convent for tea. I said, convent? You've got a convent? And they said, yeah. I said, well, where is it? And they said, down through the parking lot. I said, well, I'm going to join. And 10 years later, I showed them. I beat them. So that's how it came to the Ramakrishna order. It came to me. I didn't come to them. It came to me. That's what grace is. You think you're delivering pamphlets against the war in Vietnam at Sri Ramakrishna going, meh, I'm wheeling you in. I got you. Got you good now. Yeah. And the funny thing is, I was going to a political rally in Chicago because I'd already arranged, they'd already given me money to go to this political rally. And I was going to take something on the airplane to read. And so I was going through my parents' books. What can I read on the plane? And it's like going through books. And there they had a book, Vedanta for the Western World. It's like, what? They've got this book on Vedanta, and I didn't even know. My parents even knew what the word was. I don't know if they ever read it, but it was there. It's like, cool. So I took it on the plane and read it. It was like, it was all done for me. I made no choice in it. They always choose us. We think we're making any decisions. No, reeling us in. Like a big fish. Any other questions? Yes.
Hello.
Hi.
So you mentioned realizing God for a couple of times, and that prompted me to have a couple of questions for you. One is, what do you think I should keep in mind when I'm trying to even understand even the term realizing God or realize God? And two, if it's not too impertinent to ask, what has it done in your life? Like, either everyday life or like metaphysical life? Basically, how has your life been different after having realized God? Thanks.
Well, the word Ramakrishna uses actually is attaining God. So it really depends on how we think about this ultimate reality. And how we think of this ultimate reality really depends on our temperament and our mindset. Do we think of God as a personal form, as an impersonal form, or how do we do it? So we really need a spiritual teacher to sort of help us along and to help us define our own ideas about how to think about this ultimate reality. Some people may think of it as a personal form, some may think of it as this light within our hearts, the light of all lights, or every person sort of has their own spiritual ideal. All I can say is that the idea of the divine isn't a concept for me anymore. It's as real to me as oxygen, as the air I breathe. There's no sense of there being something outside that realm. There's no difference between that and everything else in my life. It's very much a palpable, tangible presence that's there.
Thank you.
Swamiji, when did the presence first appear? Did it come in the hospital, or how did it happen? And
I don't think it was never like so much an appearance as a deep sense of what there is and where. It's like, I don't want to become too personal on this, but the faith becomes strengthened inch by inch, and then some experiences will come which really can become very makes everything else much more real when you realize you're on the right path. And these things are not something that are just a figment of your imagination, but something that's very, very real, and much more real than the other things that you thought were real. And they just come along the way, usually quite in unexpected ways. And that can really transform our life into something that's like, no, this is it. I'm going in the direction. It's like you're on the interstate and you keep seeing these signs that we're going to the right destination. Okay, good, I'm on the right path. Yeah, that sort of thing. Okay, thank you all.
From all of us, and personally from me also, thank you so much. Much gratitude, much gratitude. And I just wish you could come back more often.
It's kind of a long walk from Santa Barbara.
It is a long walk, I know. But I think everybody here is feeling so much better for having listened to you today.
I feel better having your company. Thank
Yes.
you. It's a sorry time in this world. It's a very painful time.
Yeah, it is. But I think this helped. At least it did for me. Thank you.